The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast, cold, and gleaming, filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all expecting the usual spectacle of ego and war stories. Generals boasted of conquests, admirals paraded their fleets' victories, historians chronicled the rise and fall of entire civilizations. But today, the chatter died the moment General Varkesh Kalor entered. He was an imposing figure, even by Zyrat standards, scars crisscrossing his armored scales, each one a story of blood and triumph. Yet there was something in his stance, a tremor of unease that silenced the chamber. He did not stride in with confidence. He walked slowly, deliberately, as if each step carried the weight of the universe. "I have come," he began, voice resonant yet tight, "to speak of the only species I ever feared." A ripple of laughter passed through the council. They had heard of humans, of course, the small blue and green world in the Sol system, barely capable of space travel when first detected, primitive, backward, irrelevant, a species whose technology had only just scratched the stars. "Humans?" snorted a representative from the T-Rax Union. "You speak of children in armor playing at war." Varkesh's gaze swept the chamber. "I speak of monsters disguised as children," he said, and for the first time the room fell utterly silent. He began recounting the Battle of Orion Rift, the moment his fleet first encountered the human expeditionary force. The Dominion expected surrender. They expected panic. Instead, the humans charged. They boarded Zyrath cruisers with nothing but grit and desperate ingenuity, turning mining tools into weapons, using damaged shuttles as battering rams. Varkesh's voice wavered as he remembered human soldiers fighting through fire and smoke, smiling, laughing, even when their own ranks fell around them. They refused to retreat. They refused to surrender. They fought like they were already dead and had nothing left to lose, he said. The council leaned forward, intrigued despite themselves. Every word Varkesh spoke dismantled decades of assumption. He recounted the moment he first confronted a human squad personally. They were ragged, bloodied, yet there was a calm precision in their movements. They did not panic under fire. They adapted, improvising weapons, tactics, and maneuvers that no military algorithms could anticipate. When he called for their capture, they rescued their own wounded first, then offered aid to Zyrath soldiers. Aid to the enemy. The chamber's whispers grew uneasy. Varkesh paused, drawing a long, shuddering breath. "We believed them weak, because we mistook mercy for lack of power," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "We were wrong, horribly wrong." A chill rippled through the council. For the first time, the alien delegates realized they were listening not to a tale of conquest, but a warning, a confession. Varkesh's testimony was not about the humans' weapons or numbers or fleets. It was about something far more terrifying: their will, their adaptability, and their refusal to bow to fear or authority. And as he began to recount the moments that would turn his empire's strategy into chaos, the council understood what they had laughed at, what they had considered insignificant, was perhaps the universe's deadliest unknown.
General Varkesh Kalor paused, letting the weight of Part 1 hang in the chamber like a storm cloud. The council's delegates, once dismissive, now sat forward in their seats, eyes wide, scales and feathers trembling in apprehension. Varkesh's next words promised to erase any remaining illusions. Humanity was not just fearless, they were unpredictable in ways no species had ever imagined. "Their fury," he said, voice tight, "cannot be measured by firepower or strategy. It is a storm, relentless and impossible to anticipate." He described the aftermath of the Dominion's first orbital bombardments on human colonies. Other species would have crumbled, fleeing underground or surrendering. But the humans responded with astonishing speed and ingenuity. Within hours, civilians were relocated to fortified bunkers. Industrial machinery was repurposed as artillery. Damaged ships were patched together with scavenged components. Entire fleets, once considered scrap, became tools of counterattack. And when we thought we had them cornered, Varkesh's jaw tightened. They charged. He spoke of his first direct encounter with human soldiers. They were filthy, bloodied, and exhausted, yet their eyes burned with a light that unsettled even the hardened Xyrath. They moved with calculated chaos, ducking plasma fire while rescuing their wounded. They hacked Xyrath control systems mid-battle, rerouting shields, disabling turrets, turning Dominion weapons against themselves. They laughed while fighting, Varkesh admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Smiled, celebrated, danced across the battlefield. And every time one fell, another took their place. No hesitation, no fear. Then came the boarding of the Xyrath cruiser, Havoc's Spine, a maneuver so audacious it defied logic. A human squad, barely 100 strong, used a damaged shuttle as a battering ram, breaking through the cruiser's defenses. Varkesh watched in disbelief as the humans cleared corridors, rescued both allies and prisoners, and set explosives to cripple the vessel, all without losing a single soldier to panic. What is worse is their mercy, Varkesh continued, eyes dark. Enemy soldiers captured in the chaos were treated with care. Food, water, medical aid, even instructions to survive. They could have executed them. They could have left them to die. But they chose to teach them to endure instead. The council murmured among themselves. The concept was alien. No species had ever thought with such calculated compassion. Varkesh leaned forward, voice dropping to a growl. They fought like predators, yet they mourned each death. They adapted faster than our fleet could calculate. And through all of it, they refused to surrender, even when hopeless, even when surrounded, even when the Dominion's weapons rained down in impossible torrents. A holofeed flickered behind him, replaying fragments of the battle. Ships engulfed in fire, humans charging into impossible odds, the city streets transformed into mazes of ambushes and traps. The council's delegates could see what Varkesh described. Humans did not fear death, they used it as a weapon. And then he said it, the line that would haunt every species present for decades to come. If you want our world, come take it from our hands. We will not stop fighting. The council chamber was silent. Not one delegate laughed. Not one whispered. Even the observers from neutral systems leaned forward, caught in the gravity of his words. For the first time, they understood. Humanity was not just resilient. Humanity was a force that could not be predicted, tamed, or defeated by fear. Varkesh straightened, the weight of memory pressing on him. And this, he said, voice low and heavy, was only the beginning.
General Varkesh Kalor's claws tightened around the edge of the podium, the polished alloy biting into his scales. The council chamber was silent, hanging on every word. He had survived wars that toppled planets, yet the memory of humans still made his chest tighten. He continued, voice low, heavy with dread and awe. The Dominion believed we could break them with terror, he said. We unleashed weapons that violate every interstellar treaty, meant to obliterate entire continents in seconds. And still they adapted. He recounted the siege of New Epsilon, a human colony under full-scale assault. Zirath plasma storms tore through buildings, cities burned like supernovas, yet the humans refused panic. They rerouted power grids to fortify shelters, improvised energy shields from mining equipment, and used fire as a lure, drawing Dominion battalions into ambushes with surgical precision. Every counterattack was swift, brutal, and terrifyingly clever. Varkesh's voice shook as he recalled the paradox that haunted him. Humans mourned each death, ally or enemy, but this grief did not weaken them. It sharpened them. It honed their strategy into something no species had ever seen. Soldiers whispered names of the fallen, then charged into impossible odds as if carrying the weight of every lost life as fuel for their fury. And their mercy, he said, eyes darkening, is what made them truly monstrous. Captured Zirath soldiers were treated with food, water, and medical care. Entire squads were released back to Dominion lines after battle, carrying instructions, warnings, and survival strategies. It was insane kindness, a moral calculus that twisted the universe's rules. Other species thought mercy was weakness. Humans made it a weapon. The tipping point came during the defense of Callion Bridge, where a single human battalion held a city against thousands. Explosions rained down. Fire and smoke turned streets into death traps. Yet the humans moved with uncanny coordination, rescuing trapped civilians, disabling heavy artillery, and rerouting enemy drones to strike their own formations. One human squadron, outnumbered 20-1, manually piloted damaged cruisers into enemy lines, sacrificing themselves to destroy Dominion supply ships. The humans lost friends, yes, but every loss birthed a new tactic, a new strategy. Varkesh paused, letting the memory settle. He said, "They do not seek war. They seek survival, and they protect what is theirs. But once provoked, once their world or people are threatened, they become a force that cannot be calculated, predicted, or contained. They fight not for conquest, not for glory, not for dominance. They fight for life itself, and life in their hands becomes a weapon that even the Dominion feared to measure." He recounted the humans' final message to the Dominion before the ceasefire, a communication broadcast across the galactic network, simultaneous on every channel. Simple words, peaceful, almost gentle, but underneath them a promise as sharp as a blade. "This war ends now. We don't want to rule you. We want peace. But if you force us, there will be nothing left to bury." The chamber shifted uncomfortably. Varkesh's voice trembled. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "They could have wiped us out entirely, yet they chose mercy. They could have crushed our empire, yet they rebuilt the worlds we tried to burn. They could have conquered the stars, and still they did not." He leaned back, exhausted from memory. The silence of the chamber was suffocating. For the first time, the Council realized the scale of what humanity represented. A species that wielded mercy and ferocity with equal precision, and in doing so had rewritten the rules of warfare and fear itself. "And this," Varkesh said, voice dropping to a whisper, "is why the universe finally learned to fear humans." The council chamber had fallen into a silence so deep it seemed to press against the walls. General Varkesh Kalor's testimony hung in the air like a storm, charged and threatening, leaving every delegate, every species present, unsettled. He had told of battles, ingenuity, sacrifice, and mercy. But now the final part of his story approached, and the weight of it made the room shiver. "They call it peace," Varkesh said, voice low, almost reverent. "Yet the very act of their restraint terrifies the universe more than any weapon ever could." He spoke of the aftermath of the war. Human forces did not gloat. They did not parade their victories. They rebuilt the cities they had defended, repaired the planets they had saved, and extended aid to former enemies. Dominion scientists, soldiers, and civilians alike spoke of human compassion, of the inexplicable care shown even in the midst of destruction. And yet the universe whispered fear. Every act of mercy seemed to carry the weight of potential annihilation. Then Varkesh described the most audacious moment of all, the arrival of the human envoy fleet in Council space. Hundreds of ships, sleek yet utilitarian, glided silently across the projection, their designs deceptively simple. No weapon systems were raised, no defensive formations announced, yet every species in the chamber understood instinctively what these ships represented. "They did not threaten," Varkesh said, voice trembling. "They did not demand. They did not declare war. And yet every being here, every commander in this room, felt the same dread. If these humans ever chose to fight again," his throat tightened, "the universe would not survive it." The humans transmitted a single message: "We come to talk, not to conquer." The words were calm, almost gentle, and yet they carried an unspoken warning that resonated deeper than any fleet of weapons. The council members felt it in their cores. Humans had the power to end worlds, but they chose compassion instead, and that choice made them far more terrifying than any conqueror. Varkesh recounted the reaction of the Dominion leadership when faced with humanity's mercy. Entire fleets surrendered voluntarily, officers abandoning posts, soldiers laying down arms in awe and fear. No treaty had been signed, no conquest demanded, yet the Dominion never dared to test the humans again. They had learned the hard truth. Humans were not predictable, not calculable, not conquerable. And then the war hero's gaze swept the chamber, scanning every alien delegate. "Fear them, respect them, pray they stay kind," he said, voice heavy with finality. "For if they do not, the universe will remember every cruelty we have ever inflicted and pay tenfold." A holographic replay illuminated the walls, humans rebuilding ruined cities, tending to wounded enemies, and guiding former prisoners in survival techniques. Delegates gasped, whispered, and shifted uneasily. Across the chamber, a few attempted to laugh, then faltered, their eyes reflecting a growing, undeniable dread. Varkesh straightened, exhausted. "They fight for life, and life, when wielded by humans, is a force the universe cannot contain. Not by weapons, not by fleets, not by fear. Only by their choice to remain merciful. Only by that choice do we endure." The chamber remained silent, the delegates frozen in awe, reverence, and fear. For the first time, every species understood that humanity's power was not measured in technology, strategy, or fleets, but in the perfect balance of mercy, will, and unstoppable fury. And as the humans' envoy fleet entered the Council's orbit peacefully, a new truth crystallized for the galaxy. Never underestimate a human. Never provoke a human. And above all, pray that they remain kind. General Varkesh Kalor lowered his head. In that moment, the universe had learned what he had known all along. Humans were the species no one dared to fight, and the species no one could predict.